Steve,
Yes.
it looks like they don't want us to go in. There's all these barriers.
I know, I'm never going to get over this.
Ah,
Look at this. No,
I know.
There's no way in.
we're completely flummoxed, aren't we, Steve?
Never mind. Better luck next time.
Oh, well, let's go home.
Right, she's got to sit there.
So we're looking forward to this inflation data, expecting something in the region of 2.9%, core 3.6%, services somewhere in the region of 4.9%. We'll also get an RPI measure. Winds up Paul Donovan at UBS, who thinks the RPI is a useless measure. It's coming at 3.4%. Good morning, Paul, if you're watching, of the inflation data. Good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
What do you think of that data?
So, I guess, look, that's good, welcome progress. We all know that inflation in terms of the spot data is a bit high at the moment. We're going to want to see that come down if we want to see interest rate cuts coming. But crucially here, we're starting to see, the upturn that we had been expecting. If that's just a temporary level shift, then I think the Bank of England will be quite comfortable looking through it, and therefore they can start to bring rates down. If we start to see risk that turns into something more protracted, then we'll start to see them rethink.
I'm just going to say Barclays is probably thrilled at the fact that you're on air with these gentlemen behind. Good morning to you both. You all right? You couldn't do me a massive favour. We've seen the signs. You couldn't just move on a little bit, could you?
You get different viewers.
I know, and they love seeing you over the years, ever since 2016. You couldn't do me that wonderful favour of just moving on. Now we've seen the wonderful Brexit signs. It'll be a real thank. Yeah, lovely, great. Other broadcasters will be here. You can pester. They'd love you to see you this morning. Thank you very much. If you could move on, that would be wonderful. I'm asking you very politely. Yes, absolutely. We're done with that. Brilliant. But thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Now move on. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. Right, so let's just talk a little bit about the budget statement today as well. It's a very tricky situation. Well, there you go. I asked you politely. That's your version of Brexit. So, what do we think about the statement today?
The Chancellor's going to be walking a pretty fine line here, I think. She's trying to trade off the fact that, on our estimate, she'll have no headroom without some fiscal consolidation. Okay. So the direct impacts are a little bit more muted relative to our European peers and other places.
All right, Jack, well, thank you very much indeed for joining us. A real pleasure seeing you today. Jack Meaning, Chief UK Economist at Barclays. And whether you're a fan of Brexit or not, my goodness me, some people still banging on about it. It can be very tiresome, is all I would say. And for more on what to expect when Rachel Reeves heads to Parliament today, check out CNBC.com. And you can catch the Spring Statement in full on the CNBC International live YouTube page from 12:30 London time. Coming up, I'm hoping other broadcasters start broadcasting down here so we can lose the scenery. We'll also be joined by Vince Cable, former UK Business Secretary. Stay tuned for that at 8:30 GMT. From me and the entourage, Karen, back to you.
I'll let you go and have a good chat in the ad break, Steve. I wish we were there. Coming up on the show.
No, I wasn't actually. I gave you your moment. I'm not.
You were just about to go and then you went.
Right. I know. But I think there's a moment, there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
And I gave you the time.
It's all Brexit related.
You know that I'm not anti you guys having your moment. If they want it. I'm seriously, Steve, I'm fine with it, but it's just like, you had your moment.
Placards in the background. We wouldn't have said anything if you just let it be.
But I doubt that, dare I say it, if you were going to see it. It's fine, I don't mind it, I like colour. I appreciate
It's part of what's going on now. This idea of just, the elephant in the room, the idea that we're editing out the impact of Brexit on everything you guys are talking about. Everything.
We certainly are. I spent a lot of my time talking to a lot of people about it, so it's not.
But the general public is being fostered with this idea that we can forget about it now. Thus, we have to carry on doing this.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the sentiment behind it, but I would say don't think that people are. It's off the periphery. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I've listened to you for 9 years. I've got hard feelings now.
He was just done for having, not done, but he had tickets to the BAFTAs. He had tickets to the BAFTAs. Freebie tickets to the BAFTAs.
Good morning, Mr. Griffiths. You know where all the money's gone.
Ask him how the BAFTAs went.
Huh?
Ask him how the BAFTAs went. He had free tickets to the BAFTAs.
How's the BAFTAs, Mr. Griffiths? Loving the free tickets?
We have been ejected.
Not much on this one.
Oh.
We'll have that in a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Freude schöner Götterfunken, Tag zu aus Elysium. Wir betreten feuertrunken, himmlischer dein Heiligtum. Deine sauber bindenden Lieder, kosten Gottes streng gezeigt. Alle Menschen wieder Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flieger weit. Deine sauber bindenden Lieder, muss dem Bruder streng geteilt. Alle Menschen wieder Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flieger weit. Freude schöner Götterfunken, Top zu aus Elysium. Wir betreten feuertrunken, himmlischer dein Heiligtum. Deine sauber bindenden Lieder, muss dem Bruder streng geteilt. Alle Menschen wieder Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flieger weit. Deine sauber bindenden Lieder, muss dem Bruder streng geteilt. Alle Menschen wieder Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flieger weit.
These two jets have been literally driving up and down here.
You're going to be a 90-day ruling now.
No, I can give have you, yeah, I can give it to you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much.
Can't sneeze my larynx. Freude schöner Götterfunken, Tag zu aus Elysium. Wir betreten feuertrunken, himmlischer dein Heiligtum. Deine sauber bindenden Lieder, muss dem Bruder streng geteilt.
Thank you very much indeed. But look, the sun's beginning to come out here, but I think the storm clouds are still brewing for Rachel Reeves, not just today, but over the next 6 to 9 months as well. Trevor Greason is the head of multi-asset at Royal London Asset Management. And Trevor, lovely to see you today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Is it all doom and gloom for Rachel Reeves today, or is there anything actually that any of us that are missing, which is actually going to be more optimistic?
Well, I don't think there are going to be big surprises. So many things have been trailed ahead of this statement. Tax rises will be kept for the autumn, so I think we'll get the spending cuts we know about. There'll be a bit of comment about how the world has changed. But what's really, you will see increases in house building, for example.
So why are the house builders struggling so much?
Because these things don't happen overnight, I guess. But the thing that's interesting to me, where things are just beginning to change, you know, there's a Karl Marx quote, right, which says that there are decades where nothing happens and there are weeks where decades happens.
Yes.
It feels like there have been so many changes with Trump, with the trade war, with the new alliances, with the rearmament of Europe. Britain can be part of that rearmament, but it's very difficult to do outside the single market. So I think there's some interest here where the German ambassador last week said, why doesn't Britain join a customs union? There are discussions going on about are there ways of getting Britain into the security and defence spending, and that could be a source of growth.
It could be, but I have to say, maybe it's just me, and I'm apolitical in this, but seeing the French saying, well, let's talk about fishing rights, where at the same time, when we're worried about the existential survival of parts of Western Europe, or Europe more generally as well, it's like, come on, now's the time to drop those issues, isn't it? Or actually, have the French got a point?
Well, I think you'll always get individual countries making points, but I think what you've seen over the years is, although people talk a lot about how set in stone all the rules are of the European Union, they've been very flexible. They've found all sorts of ways to help Greece or to...
All these desperate financial straits, and you won't talk about...
Because otherwise I think what we're going to see is more budgets where we get pretty weak growth. We're cutting here, we're cutting there, and the world around us is changing fast.
The problem with flexibility is there's another very demanding part.
I don't want to overplay it, but we've, according to most estimates, we've lost 4 or 5% of inflation-free growth by leaving the European Union. If we can get some of that back through closer ties, whatever form that takes, and with the defence partnership, perhaps that is a closer tie than people are currently thinking, that's not something the OBR would be unhappy about. The OBR would give you headroom. They would say, oh great, you're getting some GDP back. That's actually what we need to see. But the markets at the moment are focused more on the debt issuance, how big will it be, and the numbers being kicked around are things like £300 billion of debt issuance. So interest rates are not going down, we're not going back to the past, debt levels are high, it's difficult. And sometimes people resort to inflation, and that's why we have sort of commodities.
For the last 2 years, consistently, 60% say rejoin. This country never wanted Brexit. There was never more than 27% of the country voted for Brexit.
As well. I don't know that all those three
Rapidly
things can
changing
happen.
world. It's like the 1970s. Geopolitics
I
is
hope it's
back.
not like the 1970s.
Well, so, I mean, you've seen the first of the inflation surges, and I think there are all sorts of things out there that could give you further inflation surges. So you need very broad diversification. In years like 2022, stocks and bonds both went down. So you need things like commodities, commercial property. You need to have this broad exposure.
Dinosaur bind and a leader must motor strangle.
It came off again, and now people are just trying to work out, given the concerns, and I just went through a whole load of retailers, Tesco, JD Sports, Kingfisher, all struggling with the budget path, let alone the world as we see it now as well. Anything in the UK equity space that looks really interesting? I mean, you touched upon commodities earlier.
Well, I think the overall market is offering value. So if you look at the American stock market, still, it's somewhere between 30 and 40 times cycling just. And they often don't invest overseas at all. But when the US market starts to wobble, they look overseas. I think that's where the value in the UK and Europe will really start to come through.
Great. Well, look, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for making sense above. Actually, it wasn't a bad rendition of Ode to Joy, was it? I mean, for all his ills, he's got a decent pair of lungs on him, hasn't he?
No amplifier required.
For all the Beethoven fans out there, Trevor Greetham, who is head of multi-asset at Royal London Asset Management, and for more.
One last quick chorus, sorry. Trump and Putin, butt cheeks of the same repulsive ass, butt cheeks of the same repulsive ass.